somewhere behind the winter coats in a closet, or wrapped in an old blanket in a safe nobody opens anymore, there is a shotgun worth far more than its owner realizes. Not because it is rare the way a painting is rare, but because the factory that built it is gone, the craftsmen who shaped it have passed, and nobody is making anything like it again. These are 10 shotguns collectors are quietly chasing, with prices climbing year after year, while most owners have no idea what they are sitting on. Sell one too early, and it could be a mistake you never get to undo. Let's get started. Number 10. Ithaca Model 37. For most of the 20th century, this was the working man's pump gun. The kind of shotgun that rode in the back of a truck and shrugged off mud, rain, and decades of hard use. It loads and ejects from the bottom, an unusual design that made it a favorite for left-handed shooters and for anyone who liked keeping debris out of the action. Ithaca built it on a John Browning patent, and it went on to become one of the longest-running pump shotguns in American history, even serving with police departments and the military through the Vietnam era. The early Featherlight models from the 1940s and 50s had a slim, fast-handling feel that modern pumps simply do not replicate. But something has shifted. The old Ithaca plant in New York changed hands more than once. Production paused for long stretches, and the early American-made guns became a finite supply. Collectors are now watching the pre-1950 examples especially, the ones with original bluing still intact and crisp roll markings. Deluxe and engraved grades, the smaller 20-gauge and 28-gauge versions, and anything tied to law enforcement or military contracts are climbing the fastest. A beat-up field gun is still just a field gun, and there are plenty of those out there. But a clean, early Featherlight in an uncommon gauge, with honest wear and an untouched barrel, is the kind of thing dealers now quietly set aside the moment it walks through the door, often before it ever reaches the rack. And if number 10 is the everyman's gun slowly earning respect, the next one is a household name that almost everybody underestimates. Number 9. Remington Model 1100. Ask any clay shooter or duck hunter over a certain age, and they will tell you the 1100 was a turning point. When it arrived in 1963, its gas system soaked up recoil so smoothly that shooters could fire round after round without the bruised shoulder that came with older autoloaders. It became one of the best-selling shotguns in American history, with millions produced, which is exactly why most people assume it could never be worth real money. Here is the twist. The very early production guns, the smooth cycling first runs with rich, dark walnut and that classic fleur-de-lis checkering, are now being pulled out of the ordinary pile by collectors who know the difference. Skeet and trap grades, the lightweight small-gauge versions, and factory-engraved examples are the ones to watch. In late 2024, a finely engraved .410 Model 1100 set a record for its model at a major auction, selling for tens of thousands of dollars. That is not a typo. A shotgun that millions of people dismissed as common produced a single example worth more than a brand new truck. The lesson here is simple, and it carries through this entire list. Volume does not kill value. The right configuration, the right condition, and the right gauge can turn even a familiar, mass-produced name into a serious collectible. Which brings us to a gun that vanished from the catalog and left its loyal fans scrambling to find one. Number 8. Browning BS in a world that had largely moved on to over and unders and pumps. Browning made a bold bet in the 1970s. They built a classic side-by-side double, the BSS, with the kind of clean lines and rock-solid lockup that hunters who loved tradition had been missing. It was made in Japan by Miroku to Browning's exacting standards. Offered in 12 and 20 gauge, and the 20 gauge version in particular earned a reputation for handling like a gun, costing several times as much. Then Browning discontinued it in the 1980s, and for years it sat quietly in the used racks while shooters chased other trends. That is changing fast. In recent market reports, The BSS has surged from near the bottom of its category to the very top as a new generation rediscovers high-quality side-by-sides at a time when almost nobody builds affordable ones anymore. The Sporter version, with its elegant straight English-style grip, and the smaller 20-gauge guns are the ones collectors fight over now. What makes the BSS so interesting is that it is still attainable today, but the window is closing. It offers genuine craftsmanship at a price that simply has not caught up to its older, more famous cousins yet. Buy a clean one now and you may be holding tomorrow's classic. Let it go cheap, and you may spend years regretting it. Speaking of smaller gauges that punch far above their size, the next gun is one of the most beloved little shotguns ever built. Number 7. Winchester Model 42. Some guns are admired. This one is adored. Introduced in 1933, the Model 42 was essentially a slide-action shotgun scaled down and chambered specifically for the .410 bore, and it has been called the greatest little shotgun ever made. It was elegant, perfectly proportioned, and built during an era when Winchester still finished its guns with a level of hand care that is almost extinct today. Production ended in 1963 after roughly 3 decades and around 160,000 guns. And that cutoff date is exactly why values keep climbing. There will never be another original. Collectors prize the pre-war examples, the solid rib and deluxe grades, the rare straight grip stocks, and anything carrying factory engraving. Condition is everything here. An original Model 42 with sharp markings and untouched finish can command serious money, while a refinished one loses much of its magic and a large share of its value. Be aware that in the 1990s, the Japanese maker Miroku produced a limited run of faithful reproductions. Several thousand marked Browning and only around 850 marked Winchester. Those replicas are lovely guns in their own right, and the Winchester marked ones have a following of their own, but collectors draw a firm line between a modern tribute and an original Depression-era 42. Know exactly which one you are holding before you ever think about selling. Now, if the Model 42 is American elegance in miniature, the next gun is the work of the most famous firearms designer who ever lived. Number 6. Browning Auto 5. Look at the distinctive squared-off back of the receiver, the shape collectors affectionately call the humpback, and you are looking at one of the most important firearms ever designed. John Browning created the Auto 5 as the first truly successful semi-automatic shotgun, and out of everything he built, he reportedly considered it among his proudest achievements. For decades, the best examples were assembled in Belgium by Fabrique Nationale, and those Belgian guns are the ones that matter most to collectors today. The reason is simple. After production eventually shifted to Japan and finally wound down near the end of the 1990s, the Belgian-made Auto 5 became a closed chapter that can never be reopened. The Sweet 16, a lightweight 16-gauge version, has a near-cult following, and clean early Belgian guns wearing their original finish are steadily appreciating. Look for the Belgian proof marks, the FN markings, and untouched bluing on the receiver. The Grade 1 field guns are climbing, but the higher grades, the lightweight models, and the smaller gauges are where the real movement is happening. What makes the Auto 5 special is that it is not just a gun, it is a piece of design history, a mechanism so good that it stayed in production for nearly 100 years almost unchanged. Owning a Belgian one is owning a direct physical link back to John Browning himself, and to a Belgian factory tradition that no longer exists in the same form. And if Browning's autoloader broke entirely new ground, his next creation was pure refinement, and it sits higher on this list for good reason. Number 5. A.H. Fox. There is a reason a former president of the United States called the Fox the finest gun in the world. Theodore Roosevelt carried an A.H. Fox, and that endorsement still echoes through collector circles more than a century later. Built in Philadelphia during the golden age of American gunmaking, The Fox was a side-by-side double designed to compete with the very best, combining a strong, simple box-lock action with elegant lines and superb balance. The company also made a more affordable line called the Sterlingworth, but it is the higher-graded guns, with their fine engraving and beautifully figured walnut, that represent some of the most sought-after American shotguns in existence. So why does the Fox keep climbing? The original Philadelphia and later Savage-era guns were made in limited numbers, and the small-gauge examples, the 20-gauge and the genuinely scarce 28, are fiercely competed for whenever they surface. Grades like the XE, the DE, and the rarefied top tiers can reach figures that stun people who still think of shotguns as mere tools rather than treasures. Originality is the whole game. Collectors want original barrels, original case coloring, and matching serial numbers, and they pay dearly for guns that have survived the decades untouched. A Fox in honest, original condition is not just a shotgun. It is a piece of Americana, and the surviving supply only shrinks with every passing year. But as revered as the Fox is, there is another golden age name that arguably defined the American side-by-side entirely. Number 4. L.C. Smith. Among American doubles, the L.C. Smith holds a special place because it was the only major American maker to build a true sidelock shotgun in large numbers. That sidelock design, with its internal lockwork mounted on side plates, allowed for sweeping, beautiful engraving and gave the gun a depth of character all its own. Built for years by the Hunter Arms Company in Fulton, New York, the L.C. Smith, affectionately called the L.C. by those who love it, became a favorite of upland hunters and clay shooters across several generations. So why are values rising now? The finest grades, the Crown, the Monogram, the Premier, and the almost mythical top tiers were built in tiny numbers by hand, and surviving examples in original condition are genuinely scarce. Even the humble field grades have a fiercely loyal following, but it is the high-grade guns, the small gauges, and the long-barreled waterfowl models that are pulling away in price. Collectors also pay a premium for guns with documented history and original factory configuration. A word of caution that applies to every double on this list. These guns were built for the lighter loads of their day, so condition, barrel wall thickness, and overall mechanical soundness matter enormously, both for value and for safe handling. An original high-grade L.C. is a shrinking resource, and the market clearly knows it. Now we move from the great American doubles to a Belgian masterpiece that changed the over and under shotgun forever. Number 3. Browning Superposed. Before the Superposed, the over and under shotgun was a niche curiosity. After it, the design became the gold standard for sporting shotguns all over the world. This was John Browning's final design, completed by his son Val after his death, and it was built in Belgium by Fabrique Nationale with a level of fit and finish that quietly defined an entire category. Many collectors consider the guns made in the 1950s to represent the absolute peak of superposed quality. Then the story takes a turn that drives collectors today. Rising labor costs in Belgium pushed prices steadily upward through the 1960s, and by the middle of the 1980s, the standard superposed was discontinued, surviving only as an extremely expensive custom shop offering. That makes the classic Belgian production guns a finite, permanently closed supply. Collectors look closely at small details, like the long tang, round knob configurations from the earlier years, which often carry a noticeable premium. The smaller gauges, the 28 and the .410 introduced in 1959, along with the higher Pigeon, Pointer, Diana, and Midas grades, are the ones climbing hardest right now. A clean Belgian superposed is far more than a shotgun. It is a benchmark of craftsmanship from a factory that simply does not make them this way anymore. And as the over and under was being perfected in Belgium, the next two names take us all the way to the very summit of American collecting. Number 2. Parker Brothers. For more than half a century, this was simply the most famous name in American shotguns, and the old marketing line said it all. They called it Old Reliable. made in Meriden, Connecticut from 1868 until Remington absorbed the company in the 1930s. The Parker became the gun against which every other American double was measured. The craftsmanship, the graceful range of frame sizes, and the sheer legendary status turned Parkers into the cornerstone of serious collections. So what is driving the market today? The small gauge Parkers, especially the 28 gauge and .410 guns in higher grades, are among the most fiercely contested firearms in the entire collecting world. A small-bore Parker in a high grade has crossed well into the tens of thousands of dollars at auction, and the very finest can climb far, far higher. Parker built its guns in a ladder of grades, from the field-ready Trojan up through the lettered grades to the breathtaking A1 Special. And the higher you climb that ladder, the rarer and more valuable they become. Authentication matters enormously here, because original production records still survive, and serious collectors verify factory configuration right down to the serial number. An original, documented small-bore Parker is widely considered one of the safest stores of value in the entire American gun world. But there is one shotgun that many collectors place even higher, and it earned the top spot honestly. Number 1. Winchester Model 21. If there is one American double that represents the absolute peak of the breed, this is it. When Winchester set out to build the Model 21 in the 1930s, championed inside the company by John Olin himself, the goal was not just to compete with Parker and Fox. It was to rival the very finest side-by-sides being made in England. The result was a shotgun famous for brute strength and flawless lockup, built so well that Winchester once demonstrated its durability by firing thousands upon thousands of proof loads through a single gun without a failure. Over time, the Model 21 moved away from standard production entirely and became a custom-built gun, each one made to order. That is exactly why it sits at number 1. Average used examples have been steadily rising in value year after year, and that is before you even reach the custom, pigeon, and grand American grades. Those top-tier guns, with their gold inlay, deep hand engraving, and stunning figured walnut, regularly command prices that rival luxury automobiles. The 16-gauge guns are the rarest of the standard gauges and bring a premium all their own, and 2-barrel sets with their original cases command especially strong money whenever they surface. The Model 21 is that rare shotgun that is both a shooter's dream and a genuine blue-chip collectible. If you own an original one, think very carefully before you ever let it go, because nobody is making the old ones anymore, and the market has very clearly noticed. Conclusion: so what ties all 10 of these together? Look back through the list, and the same patterns appear again and again. Every one of these guns came from a maker with a serious, hard-earned reputation. Almost all of them are discontinued, which means the supply can only shrink from here. The most valuable examples almost always share 3 traits. They are in original, untouched condition, they wear a scarce small gauge or a limited grade, and they carry honest, verifiable history. The field grade, refinished, heavily used versions of these guns are still wonderful pieces to own and shoot, but they are not the ones setting records at auction. The real treasures are the clean, original, documented examples that someone, somewhere, has been quietly overlooking for decades. Now here is the part that matters most, and it has nothing to do with money. Before you ever buy, sell, or even move a collectible firearm, do it the right way. Identify exactly what you have, because the difference between an original and a reproduction can be the difference between a few $100s and tens of thousands. Follow every federal, state, and local law that applies to ownership and transfer where you live, without exception. Store these guns safely and securely, locked away and out of the wrong hands, both to protect their value and to protect the people around you. And before any serious transaction, get a professional appraisal from a qualified, reputable expert who knows the specific maker. A single afternoon with the right appraiser can save you from a mistake you can never take back. These old shotguns are so much more than objects. They are history you can actually hold in your hands, engineering from an age that still valued patience, and stories passed quietly down through hands that came long before yours. Treat them with the respect they have earned.